Today we have a great show. We're actually starting with our news segment today, Cuse Chronicle. We're looking at some state news and some federal news. The big thing in New York State being the prison strikes that are going on, and a lot of people are being affected by it, especially close to home. We keep everybody in our prayers. Tommy is going to be on the entertainment section today. So Tommy, what are you guys talking about?
We got an absolutely banger entertainment section today. It's award season, so we're going to be diving into all that. Oscars are coming up soon. Just had a few other award shows that we're going to talk about. So stay tuned for that for sure.
Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing that. You and Asha are always a great duo on the entertainment section.
Thank you, Teddy.
Yeah, of course.
And Teddy's actually making his debut today.
Yes.
On the sports section with Cedric.
Yes.
So what are you guys going to be talking about?
Yeah, so on Orange Zone, Cedric and I are going to be talking about some SU sports. We're at the heels of the basketball season, at the start of the lacrosse season. So we're going to be talking a little bit about those. We're also going to be talking about this potential tush-push ban after the Eagles had much success with it in the Super Bowl. We're also going to be looking at the success of the Four Nations face-off, some of the highest ratings we've ever seen in NHL hockey. Maybe it can translate to the NBA with their All-Star game as well. But I don't want to spoil it. Let's get to the show. Anything else you want to add before we go?
Stay tuned. It's going to be a great show.
Oh, yes. Well, now we're going to go to Cuse Chronicle, our news segment of the show, with Jack McGuire and Thomas Baia.
Good evening and welcome to the Cuse Chronicle. I'm Jack McGuire.
And I'm Thomas Baia.
And we actually have an action-packed episode tonight with both local and national news. But it's good to have you here, Tom.
It's great to be here, making the debut and on the news side. This is awesome.
You're really showing me up with the outfit. I mean, I thought a pullover was nice.
When I signed my contract, they said suits only. So
where'd you get the gray suit?
Macy's.
All right. Well, I know we have a lot to get to, so why don't we start with the local news? I know there's a lot going on right now in central New York with the prison strike. Can you tell us a little bit about that, the background?
So basically, prison guards are on strike. They are upset with the conditions that they're working, and I believe the word that they use, there's forced overtime, and describe the conditions as inhumane. So they are on strike statewide. And unfortunately, National Guards have now, because somebody has to be the prison guards in this sense. So now National Guard is in, and you have to remember these people are not trained to be prison guards. And we've had some sources say that it's not good there. They understand why there is a strike, and these prisoners are very much so acting up, and they're looking at they're throwing everything they humanly can at these National Guards who are just doing their job, which is unfortunately filling in and something they're not trained to do.
And now there's a lot of disruption because a 62-year-old just died, right, during the strike.
Correct.
Which makes things tough because now obviously there's no evidence that the two are linked, but the media frenzy and everything that goes along with it is going to draw a connection between the two.
Right. And anytime, of course, there is a strike, unfortunately, somebody has to usually fill in. And a lot of times when there's a strike for something that's so important, like a prison guard, or if, God forbid, nurses were to go on strike, somebody has to fill in those jobs. Yeah. And unfortunately, for people in the National Guard, they're having to do that job.
So that's created a lot of chaos this week. And we actually spoke with, we can't reveal their identity, obviously, but we spoke with a person that's actually in the National Guard that got sent there. And he kind of gave us the idea that it's been very chaotic there, even amongst the National Guardsmen.
Yeah, like I said, these prisoners are throwing everything that they can. And some of them have been in lockdown since the prison guards went on strike. So that could be 6-7 days that these prisoners have been in their cell and without a shower and who knows what else. So definitely a chaotic scene in the prison statewide.
I'd love to be a fly on the wall in a room with Katie Hochul right now because she's got so much going on. I mean, last week I did an interview with the CEO of a local retirement home. And right now there's a crisis going on with retirement homes where they're not getting enough public funding, and that's in Medicaid sense, and that's causing a lot of them to be able to threatening to shut down. Right? They have to close certain departments, lay people off. So that's been a big deal too. And from what the person I spoke to, he said is basically that they're getting $200 a day in Medicaid funding, while these prisons are getting $300. So this whole mess has to be a lot to deal with for Governor Hochul.
And unfortunately for these jobs, they're not the most attractive jobs to do, whether that be, working in a nursing home or working at a prison, but somebody has to do them. Right. And if you're treating them, as they say, inhumane, unfortunately these strikes are going to happen. And, this is unfortunately how answers sometimes do have to get solved.
Right, right. Well, we will keep you updated on that story as things move along. But moving over to national news, there's been a lot of buzz on social media, Twitter in particular, over Elon Musk's wanting to audit Fort Knox and all the gold there. Right now, there are 4,580 tons of gold at Fort Knox, supposedly, right? But he's kind of making the case that we should be auditing it, and now congressmen are starting to kind of go along with it too. Rand Paul recently said, quote, 42 years had elapsed, since a civilian was allowed to enter and view the gold vault. While the visit in 2017 was a good first step, the mint must continue to commit itself to subject to regular oversight procedures. So obviously they do a quote unquote audit of it each year, but it's not an independent audit. And I think people are starting to kind of wonder what it is that could be going on there, right? They don't have a really good look at what's going on the inside.
Well, it's such a shock, right, that Elon Musk and Trump are in the news doing something else with this Department of Government Efficiency. But I think what's so important is to remember is, when you look at something like this is all brand new to us, and this is Trump's experiment. It's a 2-year thing with Elon, and there's going to be a lot of things that are going to happen that, people are going to be like, wait, this hasn't been done, or wait, this is what we're doing. It sounds a little foreign. A lot of people, even people on the left who are not Trump fans, have even admitted, maybe government got a little bit too bloated and maybe we can cut back. Now, of course, they're saying this is a little bit too much. Now, in terms of the audit of Fort Knox, like you said, it has been audited every year, but it's not by somebody outside of the government circle.
Right. So that kind of leads me, is the general public's quest for truth in the Epstein, JFK, 9/11 files, is that leading to questioning more things behind government scenes? Can we trust anything now? And I think we're seeing that, right?
Well, and that's so interesting. It's so interesting to watch public's reaction to these sort of things. When these things get brought up, sometimes people are like, maybe they just don't want to know some of these things, or maybe they do, but they just don't trust who's giving them that news. So I always find it so interesting to see, how does the public react to this?
Right. And what do you think's leading to this quest for truth? I mean, we have never seen this before. If you look back at the 90s, 80s, everyone kind of just, even 2000s, up until 2016 pretty much, everyone kind of just trusted what was going on, right? That they have our best interest at stake. But now it's almost like you have the people and then you have the government, and there's been this kind of, back and forth. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. But Rand Paul said it himself. He expects an in-person visit no later than March 19th. So we're going to see what happens with that.
Well, you mentioned the whole thing of 2016, people trusted. I think what happened is when you bring somebody like Donald Trump in, and it didn't even have to be Donald Trump, right, but he has such a wrecking ball in the way he speaks and some of his actions. When you bring someone from the outside in who's not a career politician, you're going to get a lot of this stuff. And maybe sometimes, people on the right or people in the middle who voted for him, they say they don't want a politician. They want somebody like this. Now, that has its pros and cons, right, but when you bring someone in, that's when some of these questions are raised, and then it's up to the public to decide, is this what we voted for, and is this what we want to vote for? And Trump was clear on this. Maybe he didn't go into specifics, we're going to audit Fort Knox, but he did say, we're going to make some changes, and we're going to look into everything with this Department of Government Efficiency.
Right. And Elon Musk actually said that he would be live streaming the visit if he were to go.
I would watch.
I would watch. I would watch too. But I'm also interested, what happens? Let's just say not every piece of gold that's expected is there. What happens? Where do we go from there, right?
That's the $1 million question, right? And that's what
question.
Nobody knows, and we won't know until that audit is performed. And
right,
this is what from Trump's point of view. I'm not saying that I agree with it. I'm just telling you what Trump is thinking.
Yeah.
We have someone in Elon Musk who's very smart. That's pretty undeniable. He's very smart with his successes with SpaceX and everything else, and he's ran a lot of businesses, obviously buying X and doing the stuff he does there. But he wants somebody like him who has the experience in cost cutting. He wants him in charge of doing this with government. And whether it works out or not, that still remains to be seen.
Right. Speaking of accountability, we're moving on to the Epstein, JFK files and the 9/11 files as well. Everyone's wondering where they are right now because Kash Patel, the new FBI director, said that on day one he'd be releasing all these files. And his boss, actually, Pam Bondi, who is the Attorney General, said that these files have been on her desk since February 13th. That's 2 weeks ago now. We still haven't seen them, and I think people in the MAGA base and people around the country, in general are getting a little fed up and they want to see these files. So where are they? What's going on?
These whole day one promises, if you remember back to the campaign, Trump said, I will have this Russia-Ukraine war settled by day one, 24 hours. Right. Obviously, not the case. We're sitting here on February 26th. The war still hasn't been settled. There's progress, maybe, but it still hasn't been settled. And now Kash Patel says the same thing. So I think with these day one promises, obviously, when you're in the limelight of a politician or whether you're Kash Patel in his role, when you say things, your words do carry weight. And if you're not able to deliver on them day one, maybe you shouldn't say it. And if you do say it once and you slip up, maybe don't double down and say it again. That's where it kind of gets tricky. But where are they? I guess we'll find out. I hope that they come out. I mean, I think people, want the truth, and we'll see if it happens. But a lot of questions, but not so much as answers.
There will be an uprising if they don't get released soon. I mean, do you start to lose credibility if you come in promising to be the administration that's transparent, the most transparent in history, and then you don't follow up? And it's not like we're asking much, right? These files are ready to be released. What more do you have to do, right? He just appointed a congressman from Florida, Anna Paulina Luna, to lead a task force on the JFK files. And I'm thinking to myself, why do you need a task force to release anything? You just release them. It's almost like you're adding another barrier between the public and the truth. So it's like, I think people are rightly so starting to question why there's a holdup here, right? What more do you have to do?
I wonder, and this is just me wondering, I don't know any of this for a fact, but I wonder if he's bringing in so many people, him being Trump or Kash Patel, and they're looking at these files and they're maybe saying to themselves, I know we said we're going to, but do we want to actually release all of it? Is there some stuff here that's in these files that maybe shouldn't get released to the public?
But what is it that would be a national security concern?
I don't know.
Dating back to 1963, almost everyone that was a player back then is probably almost dead now.
Right.
So what more could there be? I mean, it makes me question, why are you still hiding this stuff?
And that's what Trump said when he went on Joe Rogan, that he said, well, why hasn't it been released? And Trump said, well, there's people that, maybe still are alive that you don't want to release it because it could impact them. But he did say on Joe Rogan during the campaign in 2024, he said, it's probably about time. So whether that's true or not, whether it does get released, we'll see. But they've been saying it's going to, and it still hasn't been.
There's a flip side to this equation too, right? We're talking a lot about why they're not releasing it and kind of getting on them, rightly so, for not doing it. But what if there's a lot more back there that they're trying to work out behind the scenes? What if they're doing, I don't know. What if they're questioning people, trying to get to bigger people in the Epstein case? Who knows, right? That could be happening too. I mean, we see that all the time. You see it where cops question a criminal and then, maybe offer him a plea deal to get to a bigger criminal. Who knows? Maybe that's happening, right?
This is such an unknown that we don't have an example to look back on, a precedent to look back on and say, well, what happened when they released this file? Some of this stuff hasn't been done before. This is the first time. So we're kind of learning on the go as this happens as well.
Right. Well, if you run on it as a campaign promise, you better be able to deliver.
Absolutely.
So I think we can all agree on that. Moving on to Russia and Ukraine and Donald Trump. It's certainly been a whirlwind in the last couple of weeks with everything going on there. There's a lot to get to, obviously, but it looks right now like Trump is trying to cut a deal, right? It's hard to do when you have both sides, and he did promise it within 24 hours, but we know the way Donald Trump works. Obviously, he's talking a lot of promises, but honestly, on some of the stuff, he's kind of kept his word. So it looks like they're finally both coming to the table. There are two different deals on both sides, right? Now, we've given $150 billion to Ukraine in the form of payments and weapons, and right now Trump is basically saying he wants to get a lot of that money back. And he's going to do that through this mineral resources deal with Zelensky, who is going to be coming to D.C. to sign that deal. What do you think of that?
Well, one thing I'll say about some of the things that Trump says, and I'm going to quote a Democrat TV talk show host. He said, "You have to take Trump seriously, but not literally." And that's someone who's definitely not on the MAGA side. But was
that Carville?
That was Bill Maher.
That was Bill Maher. Okay, yeah.
And he is definitely not a Trump supporter
in
any regard. But he said, you have to take him seriously because he is the president, but you can't take him literally because there's a lot of things that he says that you're like, yeah, that's not going to happen or that's not true.
Right.
But getting back to Russia, Ukraine, yes. Obviously, I think everybody here wants that war to come to an end. And Trump has said that he wants it to come to an end and he wants a deal to be reached. Now, in terms of how that gets done. I know he's talked to Putin a little bit more than he has with Zelensky, and now he's talking about this stuff with the rare earth. So there's so many things going on with this, and I always think back to myself when Trump is negotiating, even when that comes down to things that he says in the media that sound crazy. I always think to myself, this is the man that wrote The Art of the Deal.
Yep.
I wonder how much of it is actually being used as negotiating tactics.
Yeah. He's a mixed bag. You have to treat him as such, right? He's a wild card. You don't know where he's going to go. You don't know what he's going to do next. And right now, I mean, he's a businessman, right? He wants that money back. He sees the way we've kind of doled out foreign aid over the years, $150 billion to Ukraine, while the rest of Europe has given half of that. So he sees that, and he's like, okay, I want this money back. And how else are you going to do that if they can't pay us the money back, which clearly they can't? He's going to do it through another method, and that's these mineral resources. Now, at the same time, for everyone complaining about him meeting with Putin, I think they have to understand that right now Russia's winning that war, and Ukraine has zero leverage. So you have to bring Putin to the table to talk, right? Because if you just keep throwing money at Ukraine and expecting them to fight, Ukrainian soldiers are going to keep dying, and it's not going to go anywhere for them, right? So you need to create some kind of peace deal, and you need to do it soon, right? So I think that's what he's really trying to do when he tries to bring Putin to the table. It looks like he's going to create some kind of economic deal with Russia too over time. Right now, we obviously have sanctions on them. So it looks like he's going to lift those and create some kind of economic deal. Maybe it's gas, I don't know, with the natural gas coming from there. Who knows, right? But I think it's very important that you bring both guys to the table. It looked like he was kind of edging out Zelensky at first, but now it's looking like he's meeting with Zelensky separately. So I think, in all honesty, I think this is the right way to do it. You meet with both of them separately, and you place both guys at the table, and you figure out what the best way forward is.
And you learn when you meet with them separately, what are the strengths and weaknesses? What is their one thing that they don't want to give up, right? You kind of get to know that, and you realize that. And then when you bring them together, you as the quote-unquote middleman, you're able to use that as a way where you can hopefully get a deal settled.
Now, there is one, and this is just hypothetical here. If we were to start taking mineral resources from Ukraine, that would obviously put American companies over there on the land in Ukraine. Does that then... I worry because if the fighting continues, does that put Americans in the crosshairs? And does that also give us a stake in Ukraine, making it almost like now we have a part in this war? That's something I think about too.
And it's such a valid worry. And I think if you were to do that and you were to put American companies over there, you need to have something in writing and draw a line in the sand. If one, like Trump says, if one person, gets touched, one of our American citizens, he's drawing that line in the sand. If you go over that, all, like he said in the Middle East, all hell is going to break loose. You have to draw that line in the sand and stick to it. So we'll see if that ends up working out that way. But unfortunately, not unfortunately, but it's February 26th, and Trump just got into office. There's so much more that's going to happen. A lot more to talk about on NGN.
And by the way, another thing is do we want to push Russia farther into the arms of China and Iran?
No.
Right, exactly. So bring him to the table. Like, what do you have to lose? What does anyone else have another solution? I haven't heard one, right? Aside from throwing money at it, which hasn't done anything. The fighting's been going on since 2022. We don't really have much to work with here. So that's basically what we have for tonight. It's been great having you all with us tonight. Thanks for being here, Tom.
Yeah, it was fun.
You'll be back.
First time, it was fun.
You'll be back. But thank you.
I passed the audition.
100%, yes. Thank you for joining us. Tune in next Monday at 8. We'll see you next time.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cuse Lounge. We have a great segment planned for you today. I'm Tommy Rooney, joined by
Asha Breedlove.
And we've got a lot of entertainment news for you. We're going to start off with Drake and Party Next Door's recent album, Some Sexy Songs for You. What do you think about the album, Asha?
That's a title, first of all. That's a title. It's very Drake. Are we seeing Drake come back into his R&B era?
Yeah, you could say that. I think
Okay.
this is Drake with the melodies, you could say.
Drake with the melodies. But I feel like it's Drake with different types of melodies.
Yeah.
Because when I think of Drake with the melodies, I think of like Teenage Fever, like Best I Ever Had, or maybe like Find Your Love. That's what I think of with Drake with the melodies. Because Drake is a very diverse rapper, as in, yes, he can rap, he can spit them bars, but he can do more sing-song R&B as well. Like we see rappers sing-song, but Drake really sings and give a straight up R&B. So I think this album, yes, was that, but in a different type of way.
I agree. I think that this was definitely like, I think the vibe of this was like good songs for the summer, like back to the relaxing Drake vibes.
Yes.
I think he was trying to get past the whole beef thing. And I'll just give my honest opinion. I didn't think the album was very good. I think it was a mid album.
Yes.
There's a couple standout songs. Nokia obviously is going crazy on social media right now with the sound. I think Give Me a Hug is the best song on the album right now. But there are a couple songs. Meet Your Padre, that's one of the worst songs I've ever heard. Might be Drake's worst song of all time.
The worst song of all time, Tommy?
His worst song of all
His
time.
worst song. Okay, gotcha.
You know, he's back on his accents thing that he does from time to time. The whole like colonizer nickname that he was given, not helping that cause either. But overall, I rated every song on the album.
Okay.
Scale of 1 to 10. Averaged all those numbers out. Final score of the album was a 6.1 out of 10.
A 6.1 out of 10. Tommy, I'm gonna have to agree with you. I think the album, the production-wise level, the album was great. Great production. But I think this album was more of a Drake album than a Party Next Door album. Because if you listen to most of the songs, it's mostly Drake. And then Party Next Door may have a little riff in there, a little ooh-ah in there, but most of it is Drake. And I agree, a standout to me was Nokia. And I mentioned Glorious as a standout, but not for a standout in the right way. As you mentioned, Drake into his accents bag. He was kind of channeling his kind of Central C energy, British flow, and going back to his On the Radar freestyle with Central C. So it kind of is going back into that in a way. But I think that kind of goes into Drake trying to play into other people's fields. Because if you know, UK rappers have a very specific way they rap. And Drake is kind of trying to play into that. And that kind of goes into like the, culture vulture thing that Kendrick has mentioned in the past. So I agree. The album is definitely a 6.1. It's not his best. Drake and Party Next Door have had better features together. I don't know if this one was really it. I think, like you said, he was trying to go against the beef.
And I feel like Party Next Door, for the little parts that he had, it was solid. I feel like his most recent project was better than his efforts on this project. But like you said, there's a lot of songs on the album that Party Next Door is not even on. They're just Drake specific. There's one song that only Party Next Door is on. And normally when you get albums, they're collab albums, they'll have like, each person will have one that's like just them on the song. With this one, there's like 4 or 5 Drake songs only. So a lot of people are saying like this might just be like leftover tracks that Drake's had.
And threw Party Next Door on there.
And threw Party Next Door on there, so it'd be like a collab album, so the hype's more there. It got released on Valentine's Day. It's called Sexy Songs for You, so all of that hype. But it does feel like a lot of filler songs. Give Me a Hug's a good song. I'll give that.
I've heard that one.
I rated it a 9.5 out of 10. It's a solid song to me. But like you said, Glorious is horrible. Like I mentioned, Meet Your Padre is horrible. This might be a hot take. A lot of people seem to like it. CN Tower was very bad to me. It's very lazy, very repetitive. Said the same few bars over and over.
Yeah, and Something About You, if that's the title. That song says the same
Very
thing
repetitive.
like 7 times. Very repetitive. It's like, Drake, we know you can do good. We know who you are, so...
But this is kind of like, this might just be my opinion also. His last few projects haven't hit for me. Her Loss didn't hit for me. So honestly, Nevermind didn't
I
hit for
liked
me.
Her Loss.
There are a couple songs on each that are good. Like Jimmy Cooks is good. But by and large, the project I don't like very much. And like I just want, like obviously it's people grow, careers go in a different direction. But like that Take Care, nothing
Old
was the
Drake.
same. Yeah, like old Drake basically. Like I just wish that Drake would come back. And granted, that was 10, 15 years ago now. But like these recent albums just haven't been hitting for me. And it's not like I'm a Kendrick stan either. Like I want Drake to put out good music, and unfortunately, I didn't think this album was that.
Yeah, I really liked Her Loss, but I think it's because I like 21 Savage more than Drake. So, and that's kind of a good version, a good way of a collaborative album. Because the Her Loss album compared to this album, it was equal 50-50 with both artists, and this one is very much just Drake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, well, with that, it's awards season.
It's awards season.
We need to get into talking about awards.
We got the NAACP Image Awards. And if you don't know what NAACP stands for, that stands for the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. So the NAACP Image Awards, honoring Black people, honoring Black creatives. Who do we have first up that's like a standout for like an award recipient?
I mean, I thought that Keke Palmer winning Entertainer of the Year, her speech was very funny when she pointed to Cynthia in the crowd. And honestly, that is a huge win because Cynthia had like one of the best years of all time.
I agree.
Entertainment-wise. But I did love One of Them Days with SZA and Keke Palmer. And I think a quote that's worth mentioning that Kiki said during her speech was, "You don't have to ask for a seat at someone's table, just make your own table."
Yes.
I think that was inspiring, and it's true, obviously. Her career has been fantastic, and she's had a great year, so I'm happy that she won it.
Keke Palmer has been a standout in the entertainment industry ever since she was a little girl. She's continued to, she's one of those child stars who have really been able to flourish through the entertainment industry, going from childhood to adulthood. So seeing her constantly get her flowers and getting this NAACP Image Award is amazing. She is the true definition of an entertainer. She sings, she writes, she produces, she hosts TV shows, she acts. Keke Palmer does it all. She is the definition of an entertainer.
Yeah.
So it's very fitting that she gets this honor and this award.
Absolutely. Another one that I think is worth mentioning, the Wayans family getting inducted in the NAACP Hall of Fame. Obviously, they have contributed so much to the culture that I think that they are very deserving of winning this award.
Yes.
Damon and Marlon Wayans thanked their brother Keenan Ivory Wayans at the awards. He wasn't there, which some people were a little worried about, like why wasn't he there? But assuming everything's all good and he just wasn't able to attend.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're responsible for In Living Color, White Chicks, Scary Movie, a bunch of classics that I think that it was definitely very deserving for them to win this award.
Yes, the Wayans family has been, they are black comedy family dynasty. Keenan Ivory Wayans, like you said, Damon and Marlon Wayans really talked about the impact of their brother Keenan Ivory Wayans. He really is the definition of, I'm taking my family with me. Mm-hmm. He started, he built, and he brought his family up with him. And it's just the true definition of family over everything. Yep. Together, they've always stood strong. And even past that mantra and that idea to the next generation, like to quote Young Thug, Keenan Ivory Wayans, he had the plan, he just needed the platform. And they took that same platform and passed it on to the next generation. And the next generation of Wayans to come from that. So the Wayans are a family dynasty, and they deserve this honor. They even have a show on right now that actually won an NAACP Image Awards with Damon Wayans Jr. and Damon Wayans Sr. that's on right now. So they're still doing it as of now, and they're doing another Scary Movie.
Yeah, I mean, they're an extremely talented family. Like, it's one thing to be able to bring your family along with you or your friends along with you when you make it, but they've all made it, like, respectively themselves, too. Like,
yes.
They have the chops to be able to do what they do. So it's an incredible family, and I'm very happy for them. But another thing that we need to mention, 688 winning Outstanding Motion Picture, and Kerry Washington starring in it, won Outstanding Actress in a Motion Picture. So yes. What are your thoughts on that?
The 6888, an amazing movie done by Tyler Perry. It's an amazing movie. Tells the story of the 6888 Battalion, an all-black female battalion working in World War II at the time. We don't see a lot of movies about black people in World War II already, so this movie is just, it was amazing to stand out. And Kerry Washington was absolutely phenomenal in this movie. She took on this role and she told this story and guided us through a journey with this women coming from all the way to America, going to where they were at, and just how they went through in World War II. And it was an amazing movie. So a well-deserved honor. And Kerry Washington actually went back up on stage and made sure she thanked Tyler Perry. And he even said something about it on social media that it brought him to tears to see someone give him his flowers like that.
Absolutely. And like any Tyler Perry movie is going to tug at your heartstrings a little bit at certain times, but it's definitely a story that a lot of people have never heard of and needs to be told. And I very much enjoyed the movie. So
yes, it was absolutely amazing.
All right, next award show, SAG Awards.
SAG-AFTRA Awards, yes. So the SAG Awards, we have Zoe Saldana winning Best Supporting Actress for Amelia Perez.
Yep.
Zoe Saldana is an amazing actress. She's been in the game for a minute. So to see her, another person, getting their flowers when they deserve them is absolutely amazing. She gave a wonderful, amazing speech talking about how important the union is, how important being in a union is. And it's kind of coming a year and a half after the SAG-AFTRA strikes that took place starting all the way in July, ending in November of 2023. And when these actors were on strike, couldn't promote their movies, couldn't really work. And she talked about the importance of it and how important it is for actors and actresses to really maintain a financial stability.
Yeah. Being in this category, it's tough because you could argue that they're not really that comedy-ish, but I think that those three casts, like the award is Best Ensemble, those three casts are stacked with superstars and also up-and-coming stars.
I definitely agree. Even Selena Gomez, when accepting the award, she was shocked herself going up against these, like you said, The Bear, Abbott, Shrinking, going up against these top ensemble casts. She was shocked herself. I have a hot take. I honestly don't think that The Bear is kind of a comedy. I think, like you said, it goes into the realm of a dramedy. But they were very shocked that they won this award. But congratulations to them on this, and much success to them in their show. But it's definitely a hot take on the winner of that.
No, I was surprised by that. Another one I was surprised by is female actor in a comedy series going to Jean Smart for her work in Hacks, which I will be honest, I have not seen. However, she beat out Quinta Brunson and Iowa Debris, who are two of the best actors in the game right now.
Right.
And I was very surprised, which they're on those two of those shows we were just talking about, Abbott and The Bear. And I thought that Iowa was definitely going to win this award. But, I mean, I will be fair and say that I haven't seen Hacks, but I do think that Io should have won this award just based on how good she is in The Bear.
Yeah. The interesting thing about females in comedy, it's a very hard category to be in because typically you don't see a lot of funny women in comedy. So when we have these awards, it's kind of hard to like, how do you judge the winner? Because all these shows, like we said, are vastly different on the comedy scale. So are we slapstick funny? Are we ha-ha funny? So it's like kind of hard to judge based on these shows that are vastly different. Who actually deserves the award of Best Female in a Comedy Series?
Absolutely. I think that this SAG Awards overall was good.
Yes,
and
I
there's
agree.
a lot of talented people and a lot of good shows that, you know, unfortunately not everybody can win. But we got to get into our Oscar predictions now.
Yes.
Oscars are this weekend. I'm very excited to see what is going to go down. Let's start with Best Actor. Who do you think is going to win?
I think Timothée Chalamet is going to win Best Actor for A Complete Unknown. I know everyone has talked about, you know, Tim on the rise, but I think that SAG-AFTRA award is kind of hinting at what is going to happen at the Oscars. I really think this could be Timothy's winning for the Oscars, and he will go under as one of the youngest people to win in the Best Male Actor in a lead, Best Male Actor category. I think Timothée Chalamet is going to win the Oscar.
Well, and not to spoil the next upcoming category but Timothy's nominated for 2 different roles, which is insane. 2 movies of his this year are up for Best Picture, and that just shows how good of an actor he is. But I'm going to agree with you. I've also got Timmy. I think that he's going to win this award. I think Adrian Brody would be my second pick for his work in The Brutalist, and he's also a phenomenal actor. But I think Timmy has got it this year, and doing a biopic in 2025 is like kind of a risky thing.
It is. It's very hard.
About it. And I feel like, you know, the role that he has to play in that, there's so many people who are going to be like, that's not Bob Dylan. Like, I don't see him as Bob Dylan, but he really sold the role.
And not only did he do that, he actually, when he hosted SNL, he was the host and the performer. Yeah. And he performed Bob Dylan's songs. So I think that kind of just shows, it kind of made people see him as Bob Dylan. Like, okay, he is a method actor. He deserves this Oscar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Best Actress, who you got?
I got Cynthia Erivo. We're going for the EGOT. Cynthia, you got this. I got Cynthia Erivo for Best Actress.
I agree with you again. I think that this is her award for sure. Like, I think this one is definitely going to go to her. And like you mentioned, she's going to get that EGOT status, which is so coveted. And I think that she's fully deserving of it. Wicked was an incredible movie. And the fact that she was singing live while doing these insane stunts, flying through the air and everything, it just shows how good of a singer she is and also good of an actor to be able to keep those two going at the same time. I think that she is definitely going to win Best Actress, and I think she deserves it. It's also a good field. I wouldn't be surprised if another person won, but personally, I think she should win.
Yes, Cynthia, yes, she's going for the EGOT. Absolutely. She's going for the EGOT, and I think she's going to get it.
Although sometimes in the Oscars, they just give it to somebody that doesn't deserve it, in my opinion, because they want to be different and not pick the big one that everybody wants to win. But we're hoping it's Cynthia.
We're hoping it's Cynthia.
Best Picture. I'll run through these real quick.
Okay.
Honora, The Brutalist, A Complete Unknown, Conclave, Dune Part 2.
Okay.
Amelia Perez, I'm Still Here, Nickel Boys, The Substance, and Wicked. What's your pick?
I think Wicked's going to win it.
Yep.
Based off the numbers and the amount of press Wicked was getting, the box office numbers, Wicked had a wonderful year. Coming out the box strong that Thanksgiving weekend. It hit the ground running. It was on fire. Even on streaming platforms, it's doing numbers. I think Wicked is going to win it. And it has so many nominations in basically every category. Yep. Along with Cynthia Erivo getting the nomination for Best Actress, Ariana Grande got the nomination for Best Supporting Actress. So both of your leads for one movie are nominated to these categories. You got to win Best Picture.
And I wouldn't be surprised if Ariana Grande won Best Supporting Actress.
I would not be
as
surprised either.
I hate to do this, but I also agree with you on Wicked as well. We have the same picks for all of them. So I think that, like, just to go off you, I think that this movie dominated the year. I think that it kind of started a revitalized the culture in terms of, like, play movies becoming more and more popular. And I know for a fact that my fiance wanted to go see Wicked after we saw the movie. She wanted to go see the play. The tickets are insane. Very hard to get, very expensive. So
yes.
It's definitely brought that play back as well. That play's been out for like 20 years, or longer than that.
Yes.
But the movie is phenomenal. Soundtrack, I've heard 10 billion times.
It's amazing.
So I'm very excited for Wicked to probably get this award. And it should be a very packed night for Wicked Awards as well.
It definitely will, yeah.
All right, well, that is all the time we have today for Cuse Lounge. I'm excited to watch the Oscars this weekend, and we will be back next week with our reactions and more. Thank you.
Alrighty, we are in the zone, the orange zone. Thank you so much for joining us here back on Newhouse Grad Network. We got a great show of sports for you today. We're going to start off with some Syracuse sports. Right now we're at the kind of towards the end of the basketball season, both for the men's and the women's. And Cedric, it has been a struggling season for both teams. Both teams have been 3-7 in the last 10 games. They've both lost 4 out of the last 5, and there's a lot of ACC tournament implications that we're seeing up ahead. So let's talk about that a little bit. What are you seeing, at least down the road, for both of these teams?
Well, Teddy, within the past hour, we have a huge result. Syracuse getting the big 74-60 win at home against NC State. It's a game that they need. It was a must-win, and with that win, Syracuse's magic number has been set down to 2. There's Boston College and Stanford in progress right now. Should Boston College lose that game, Syracuse would clinch an ACC berth with a win or a Boston College loss.
That's amazing, yes. And going into the NC State game, Syracuse was 15th in the ACC standings, the men's team that is, and that is basically the last spot to get into the tournament. But with that win against NC State, they hold the tiebreaker now over them, and hope is alive. They now, I believe, are 12th or 13th in the standings.
13th in the standings.
13th in the standings, and they will hold that tiebreaker over Boston College as well. So there is a lot of hope. Hopefully that will translate to an NCAA tournament bid, but there's a lot of work still needing to be done for Syracuse on that front. But we have 3 more games. We play Virginia Tech, SMU, and Virginia. How do we feel about those games, Cedric? Do you think Syracuse is going to take 2 of the 3, or all 3, or none? What do you think?
Those 2 games on the road are going to be tough. I think that SMU is certainly going to be very tough. They're very good at home. I think that Virginia Tech is a more winnable game for Cuse. Definitely the most winnable game on the schedule is, of course, Virginia at home. Syracuse looking pretty good at home tonight against NC State. But the fact of the matter is, Teddy, they don't need 2 out of 3 wins. With this win tonight, I think 1 win will essentially seal the deal and get this team into the ACC tournament. Just with the tiebreakers that they own and everything, this was a huge win. We were talking about how big this tonight's game was before going live today. And I said that if Syracuse lost this game tonight, they would probably have a less than 50% chance of getting in to the ACC tournament because they would need at least 2 more wins. But with the win tonight, I peg Syracuse's odds at greater than 90% now at making the tournament.
Yeah, and we all know it's no secret that the Syracuse men's team has not had the season that they were expected to have. It's pretty unlikely that they'll even get an NCAA tournament bid. They would have to win the ACC tournament. But I will say that the performance they had in this game is one that they could really carry into the tournament to give them some momentum. They actually had their best shooting game with the exception of the Albany game. Percentage-wise, they shot over 58% from the field, which is much better than they've been. They've been averaging like 40 to 45% shooting from the field in the last 10 games. And they also only did it shooting 8 threes, which is the lowest number of threes that they've shot in the game. This is a really physical game for Syracuse. They basically played like their season was on the line, and it was on the line. They showed it, and it translated in the way they played. And that's a brand of basketball Syracuse could continue into the ACC tournament.
And interestingly enough, they pretty much pulled like a 180 from that Pitt game because remember, in that game against Pitt, an 80-69 victory for Pitt, Syracuse was lighting it up from three-point land. They were, 43% from downtown, hit 14 threes. That's among the most they've made all season. What they couldn't do was score in the paint.
Yeah.
And then tonight they were able to bruise their way in, 62% on two-point field goals. And so that was the difference tonight, interestingly enough.
Yeah, they shot 4 times as many threes in that Pittsburgh game as they did tonight. And so maybe if they can get both games going together, the three-point game and the paint game together, this could be a very interesting last stretch of the season for the men's team. But we also need to look at the women's team. The women's team, they are also struggling this year after a really good year last year. And they also are looking to hang on to an ACC tournament bid. They pretty much have to win out. They had a bad loss to ranked number 11 Duke, though, losing by over 30 points. Cedric, what do the women's team, what do they need to do in order to hang on to that berth?
I think that to feel comfortable, you need 2 wins.
Yeah.
You need 2 wins in their last 3 to 4 games. And you know what? That Duke loss, even though it was on the road at Cameron Indoor, is a very tough environment to play.
Yeah.
That was eerily reminiscent of what Duke did when they came over here and beat the brakes off of Syracuse here at the Dome.
Yeah. It's just been that way for Syracuse. The women need to win these 2 games. I believe they are currently standing at 16th in the standings, so they basically have to win and they're in. If they don't, then they're out. So let's hope the best for the Syracuse women's team this year. Now, although our basketball season, the Syracuse men's basketball season and women's basketball season have not been super well, the lacrosse teams are both doing really well. They're both ranked in the top 15. They have come off some pretty tough losses, though, in their season. The men just recently losing to ranked number 15 Harvard. They had scored 5 goals in the first 5 to 6 minutes of that game. They were up 5-0, but they ended up falling 15-14 against the Crimson in the Dome. So, Cedric, what did you see in that game that Syracuse needs to correct and fix going forward?
What they need to fix is their defense and their second half woes.
Yeah.
I mean, they got off to that really hot start. This is, even though Harvard was a top 15 team, this was a game that at home you were widely expected to win. After that loss to Maryland, remember, they're coming off 2 straight losses, a loss to Maryland and a loss to Harvard here by 1 goal. They hadn't beaten Maryland in 3 decades. And so I was saying, you know what, the alarm bells, don't ring them just yet. After this loss to Harvard, I think there's slight cause for concern just because of the gauntlet of a schedule that Syracuse has coming up.
Yeah, no, they still have to play Notre Dame. They have Johns Hopkins coming up soon. They also have North Carolina and Duke, 2 teams in the ACC that are on the come up as well. And so, yeah, it's going to be really tough for them. I would say that the alarms should start going off a little bit for Syracuse. But I will say, though, that after that game, Harvard's coach did say that he sees Syracuse as a Final Four team this year. He thought they had some grit, even though they let the game slip away at the end. They were without Luke Roa on the offensive side, so maybe if he was in the game, he would have provided just that little bit more boost of offensive firepower that would have taken them over the edge. But I agree, the defense has got to be better. The goalie did amazing for Harvard. He really was lighting it up in terms of saves. Graham Stevens, he had 13 saves in that win, and it's actually his 3rd straight game with 13 saves. And on the Syracuse side, we actually had to sub out our goalie. The coach wasn't really liking his performance there, so we really got to do better on the defensive side for sure. Now, the Syracuse men's lacrosse team has lost 2 straight games. So is the women's team. But should we have cause for concern for them as well, Cedric? What do you think?
I say a lot less concern for the women just because they were without their top attacker, Olivia Adamson. You know, she is the lifeblood of that Syracuse offense. And when you face 2 top 5 teams in the nation without your best attacker, it's going to be very tough to win games. They were able to stay relatively competitive. But I think that the next couple of weeks, once they get Adamson back, it's going to be a good litmus test for the Syracuse women's team.
Yeah. 2 top 5 teams, like you said, in North Carolina. They lost that game 16-8, but they also lost to Northwestern 12-8. And Northwestern has one of the best lacrosse players in the country, female lacrosse players. Madison Taylor, she has 31 goals on the season in only 6 games. She's averaging 5.17 goals per game. She had 8 shots in the game, all on goal, and made 5 of them. everybody else in that game for Northwestern only had 1 goal if they got on the board. She's a special player. She had a great performance 2 years ago in the national championship that Northwestern, I believe, won against Boston College, and that was in her freshman year. So she's really developed herself. She's a great player we need to keep our eye on. She's one of the best players in the country who actually has a spot on the women's national team. So I agree with you, Cedric. I think once they get Olivia Adamson back, they'll have a lot more firepower. No reason to panic yet. Both teams are both still in the top 15. They do have tough schedules going the rest of the way, but we wish them the best and hope to see some good lacrosse from both clubs. Now, we want to carry over into the professional sports world. And for those of you who are NFL football fans, we saw the Super Bowl, Kansas City and Philadelphia. Philadelphia ending the reign of Kansas City, preventing the three-peat, and history was not made. And part of that was because of the Philadelphia Eagles' success with the tush push, a play that they've branded the brotherly shove. Cedric, talk a little bit more about the tush push, what that is for those who don't know that are watching, but also what's happening with the tush push in the NFL in recent news.
Well, first off, the tush push is the most unstoppable play in football. Coming from an Eagles fan, from the last time we were on this show, I enjoyed that parade. I enjoyed that Eagles confetti coming down in the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia. Second ring, it means a lot to those fans. It means a lot to me, to be quite honest with you. The play, okay, Jalen Hurts, usually Jalen Hurts, a guy who can squat, 600 pounds?
Yeah.
Yeah, he gets down low, has his running back and tight end push the lot pile forward, and it's the most unstoppable play in football. Probably it was more unstoppable even a couple years ago on their first run to the Super Bowl against Kansas City when they had Jason Kelce. Because when they had Jason Kelce, the push he got off the line was just unbelievable, and I believe the play was truly unstoppable. The Eagles have actually regressed in the percentages over the years. This year, just 39 out of 48, only 81% success on the play of getting a first down or a touchdown on the play, Teddy. But you know what? Sometimes teams don't want to tip your hat off. They don't want to call you too good because teams want to ban this thing.
Yeah.
They want to ban this thing. There was a mystery team that wanted to ban it, Teddy, and I think that information has been released. Which team?
Yeah, so first of all, what? They want to ban it? No. So anyways, it is a great play. It has definitely changed the landscape of football. And now that you have Saquon Barkley in the backfield who also squats 600 pounds, they don't have Jason Kelce anymore, but you get a little extra push on the tush with that leg strength as well. So the team has been released that is pushing for the ban. It's the Green Bay Packers, and their general manager, Brian Gutekunst, he's the one that is pushing for it. He's actually quoted talking a little bit about the tush push because the Packers have used it. He said they've used it in different fashions with our tight end, Tucker Kraft. There's going to be a lot of discussions about it, but he still has to look at things. He's quoted saying, I've got to kind of look at some of the information as far as injury rates and things like that, but we'll see. And you know, it's interesting, Cedric, we were talking about the Eagles using the play a lot. The Buffalo Bills also use this play a lot. Both the Eagles and the Bills, they've either scored a touchdown or achieved a first down on 87% of their attempts using the play since the origins of it in 2022, while the rest of the NFL is just 71%. However, there is some pushback now from the Bills head coach, Sean McDermott. He is quoted here saying that there's always been an injury risk, and I've expressed that opinion over the last couple of years when it really started to come into play the way it's being used, especially a year ago. He talks more about prioritizing player safety. And later on in the quote, he says, again, you have to go back in fairness to the injury data on the play. But I just think the optics of it, I'm not in love with. So do you agree with Sean McDermott or not? How do you feel?
What do you think, Teddy?
What do I think?
I absolutely do not agree with that. I think that Sean McDermott is just putting a facade over the top of this whole thing. Because tell me instances in which players have gotten injured on this play. You can probably count them on the number of in your hand. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's for the Eagles at least. They've perfected the craft. They've worked on it for 3 years. Either learn how to stop it, but you know what? Like banning the play just because you can't stop it, that's just NFL going against the Eagles. I think, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I don't see there being an injury like this play being injury prone to anybody. Like every time I've watched a tush push happen, I've never seen anybody get injured. I have seen defensive linemen hop over the line and get threatened that if they do it again, there's going to be a touchdown. So I will just say I don't think there's any injury risk with this play, to be quite honest with you.
Quick shout out, though, by the way, to the NHL, because I will just say this, that the Four Nations face-off was fantastic. The highest ratings for a hockey game ever. You know, the NBA changed their format for the All-Star game. Second lowest ratings ever. Don't quite have the time to go in depth into that today, but I will just say shout out USA Hockey, shout out Canada Hockey.
Yeah, and it's maybe a recipe that the NBA wants to use because the NBA does have a lot of international players in the league as well. They could easily split up the teams and do a similar tournament. Maybe we'll have more to come on that in the future with Orange Zone. But guys, thank you so much for tuning in to Orange Zone here on Newhouse Grad Network. With Cedric Derecho, I'm Teddy Caputo. We hope that you will join us next time here on Newhouse Grad Network.
Well, it was a great show, everybody. It was a good time. A lot of good entertainment news, a lot of good sports news, and some surprising stuff in the news world as well.
Yeah, the news.
Hopefully, we're praying for the National Guard people who are in that terrible situation.
Yeah.
And we hope that the correction officers also get their fair pay and hours as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
But make sure you join us next week for NGN Episode 6.
Yeah, we'll have a great show next week, so please stay tuned.
Have a good night.
God bless.